Hey everyone, welcome to MT Guitar. Today we're doing Getting Started with Music Theory. Really excited about today's lesson. We're going to cover 5 essentials that you really need to just get going with music theory. I started a new series recently called Music Theory Monday, but it occurred to me that really I should kind of back up a little and talk about 5 things that I think you really need to grasp in order to understand what the heck even people are talking about. Because there's so many terms thrown out with music theory, right? A lot of numbers, a lot of Roman numerals, scale degrees, intervals, etc. And we kind of have to get going with what that all means before we can really understand what even we're talking about. So I'm going to cover the 5 things here. And I think even if you're not a beginner, I think this is really good to do, because a lot of actually my private students will come to me and say, they're sounding great and they're playing all this stuff, and they say, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I kind of want to be able to pick up songs by ear, or I want to write more songs or be able to improvise more. And their technique is good, but they kind of need their mind and ear to catch up with what they're doing. So this is kind of for anybody, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to cover these things one by one, and I'm going to cover a bonus thing at the end of the video, so stick around for that. There'll be a study guide for this on the Patreon. Welcome to check that out. It's a great way to support the channel and get access to a bunch of content. So what we want to do basically is, step 1 is identify a root, okay? And this is really important because we can't really build exotic chords and scales and wonderful, beautiful chord progressions until we understand what the root is, all right, of each chord, of each scale, or of a given key. So that's a lot, I understand, but before we talk about chords or scales, if I just say, all right, I want to play, a song in G, I want to know where the root of G is, okay, not just the chord or the scale. So we want to start with usually the bassiest one we can find. So here would be a G. All right, now there's other G's on the guitar, because if I play a G on a piano, I might say, well, my work is done because the G looks the same on every part of a piano. Or maybe I'm playing a saxophone or something and I've got the G fingering. I'm done. Not the case with guitar, okay? Because now every G doesn't look the same. So the next essential, besides finding the root, would be finding the octave, defining the octave, understanding the octave, okay? So for those who are fans of physics and of how sound works in a more mathematical sense, what an octave is a doubling of the frequency. So if I play an A, I just, say I find an A root, and I can create chords and scales and chord progressions from there. But if I want to just find out what the frequency is, it's 440, okay? And then if I want to go up to the higher octave, I would double that to 880. I'm sorry, this is 440. This is actually 220, cut in half. So here's a higher A, so that's 440. Now if I want to find a higher A, I can go up to this note, which would be 880. Okay, so you don't need to know that to play music, of course, but it's kind of nice to know that what an octave is. We recognize it as the same note, up or down. And when I say up or down, faster frequency, 440 to 880, or a lower frequency, or slower frequency, 440, cut it in half, 220. However, what's really important to know is that these are all the same note, A, A, A. Okay? So defining the octave would be the second essential. As a package deal for the second essential, you also want to identify the unison. Meaning, if I play this A, I also have an A on the 5th string open. And those are not even different octaves. These are unisons. So these would both be 220 hertz, which I don't recommend thinking of it like that necessarily, but it would be the same A, bass A, bass A. Okay, so how would you go about doing this? Well, let's say you have an A, 5th string open, okay? And you want to find every A, unison and octave, as finding your root all across the guitar, okay? So I would go up 2 frets and 2 strings to this A from the 5th string open, and then the 3rd string, 2nd fret. Anytime I cross the 2nd or 1st string from the 3rd or 4th string, I need to go up 3 frets, 2 strings. So here's this A. Now I'm going to go 3 frets over, 2 strings down. And then there's that A. So there's 3 A's. Now I'm here, anytime I'm on the high E string, I can go to the low E string. And it's the same note 2 octaves down, so I can just start over. Now I go by 2 strings, 2 frets rule here. 5th fret, 6th string, to 7th fret, 4th string. There's an A. I'm crossing over to the 2nd string, so I need to go 3 frets. 7th fret, 4th string, 10th fret, 2nd string. 10th fret, 2nd string. Now I have a unique situation where I can't go down 2 strings anymore, and I'm not on a high E string. So what I can do is I can just go up 3 strings over 2 frets to find a lower octave of A. Okay? Now I'm here. I can go over 2 strings, 2 frets. But perhaps more importantly to notice here is that I've now played the first 2 A's of the entire neck, up 12 frets. Okay, so I started with open 5th string, 2nd fret, 3rd string. I made it to 12th fret, which is the guitar up an octave, and 14th fret, which is 2nd fret up 12 frets, up an octave. So I've covered every A. Doing that with every note, especially the natural notes, meaning C, D, E, F, G, A, B, would be really, really huge, okay? So you've defined the root, the lowest one, memorized the bass notes on the 6th and 5th strings. Then you would learn how to go up and down octaves and to find unisons. One more note on the unisons, which I think you'll like. Let's say I play an F, but okay, here's an F on the bass. And then I know that anything on the 6th string is the same fret on the 1st string. That's also an F. These are Fs, okay. If I want to find unisons of this F, I can go up 5 frets to the next string. So here's 1st fret, 1st string, go up 5 frets, so that's 6th fret, 2nd string, unison. Going to the 3rd string, I have to go up 4 frets because of the tuning between the 2nd and 3rd string. So I go up 4 frets, there's an F. F, F, F. Now I'm going to go up 5 frets again. There's an F, 4th string, 15th fret. And one more time, 5th string, gosh, what is this? 20th fret? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unisons. On piano, you'd only have one place to play that pitch of an F, and usually with most instruments. So there you go. That would be really, really important to get going. Try a different note every day and see if you can know where the bass note is, where your root note is, move it up and down the octave. You know, I'm kind of giving away a lot of what I do in my first private lessons, so hopefully this is of value to you. All right, now, the third thing would be to define the major scale. Why is it so important? You might be kind of tired of hearing people talk about the major scale. One of the reasons is that in order to understand what the heck we're even talking about when we talk about Roman numerals and scale degrees and there's the there's the 1-4-5, or there's the blues note, there's the minor pentatonic, and the minor pentatonic is 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7. What does all that mean? Well, unless you know what the major scale is, you really don't. You might know what it means as far as playing it. You might play beautifully, but you may not know what a flat 3 means or what all this stuff means unless you know the major scale. So let's talk about the major scale before we play it. A major scale would be 7 notes, all right? 7 notes. That's all we really need to learn in a major scale. Now, what we can do is, let's go back to the octave thing. If I have a C here, let's go to C now, and I go up 2 strings, 2 frets, I've found my octave. I can say, okay, how do I fill in that octave with a major scale? I'm not going to go above or below it for now. I can create a series of whole steps and half steps to create a major scale, and our ear already knows this. if I start going like this, it might sound cool, but we know that's not the major scale. That was actually, I think, Locrian or something. But we know that a major scale sounds like this. It's do, re, mi, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And if I start playing other notes, I'll notice that it's not quite the major scale. So I think challenge your ear to recognize that you already know this stuff in your ear. We really just need to translate it to our mind a little bit and our fingers, and eventually let the mind not think about it. We don't want the mind to always be thinking when we're playing. In fact, we really don't want to think much at all, right? So we need to get this going now so that we can learn to forget it. So what I'm going to do is create a series of whole steps and half steps from my low root and make it up to the octave. So I'm going to do 2 whole steps. Okay. Now a half step. Now 3 whole steps. Now a half step. And I've now created a major scale. Whole step, half step. Whole step, half step. Maybe I should back up. A whole step is 2 frets. A half step is 1 fret. So I'm going from the 3rd to 5th fret. Now I'm going from the 5th fret to 2nd fret next string, but there's 5 frets difference between these strings. So by going back 3 frets, I'm actually going up a whole step. It would be like going 5th to 7th fret on this string. Okay? So whole step. Half step is 1 fret. Whole step, going backwards 3 frets, just like going up 2 frets. Whole step and a half step. Whole, half, whole, half. If you walk by a music theory class in college, you might hear them saying whole, half, whole, half within the first couple months, because otherwise nothing is going to make sense. All right? That's the 3rd concept, is knowing how to connect an octave with a major scale with whole steps and half steps. All right. The 4th essential, now we're getting into a little more how we can use this to understand music in general. Taking out the notes and replacing them with numbers. Okay, so for instance, it's true that this is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And that's great. The problem with that, though, is let's say I go to another popular scale like E major. I have 4 sharps. That's a lot to remember. E, F sharp, G sharp, okay, A, B, C sharp, yeah, D sharp. Okay, I've just played the same formula of whole steps and half steps, but I'm changing everything because of the letters. Now, I don't want to beat up on letters. I love understanding the notes, and I read music, and I love it. But you don't need to play guitar, okay? So what you might want to do now, which is what I did a lot to understand music theory, is to replace the letters with numbers. So, for instance, instead of C, D, E, all the way till I get to C, I'm going to keep in mind that there's 7 notes in this scale, in this key of C major. And I'm just going to count them out. And when I get to 7, I'll start over at 1, and I've made it to my octave. All right? So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 3 to 4 is a half step. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. I've made it. 7 to 1 is also a half step. Sometimes we call 1 8 at the higher octave, but if it's easier to think of it as 1 only, that's fine. 1, 2, 3, half step to 4, 5, 6, 7, half step to 8. Okay, that's the 4th essential, is knowing that the major scale is numbers, no flats yet. It's just 1 through 7. The reason that's so important is because when we modify the major scale, let's say I want to play a blues note or a blues scale, and I say, well, I can't play this major scale anymore because it's not bluesy enough. That's fine. Let's say I want to play a minor pentatonic. I would need to play a flat 3, usually. Okay? I don't know what a flat 3 is until I know what a regular 3 is. Here's 1, 2, 3. Flat means down a fret. So there's a flat 3. I could also play it here, up 5 frets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, flat 3. All right? So, you can never know the major scale too well because everything will come as a sort of a variation of the major scale. Or I should say we can compare it to the major scale by saying flat 3. Flat 3 compared to what? To the regular major third. All right. Fifth and final essential in just getting started, there's millions of things we can do, right? But we're just getting sort of the language going, is to understand the chromatic scale. I remember jamming in high school at my best friend's garage, and he had a drum set in there and a bass amp and a PA. And I would plug in my acoustic. I played acoustic guitar more than electric probably back then, even in a band setting. And we would just be jamming. And my friend's grandfather was a jazz trumpeter who had been a professional and stuff. And he was really nice. He was like, "Oh, I thought that was the radio," which there's no way he could really think that probably, but it was really nice of him to say. And then he knew that, this is what I wanted to do for my life. And he was telling me, the two things you got to learn really are the major scale and the chromatic scale. And then you're good to go. And it took me a long time. At first I thought, well, I was like, how can that be? And it took a while for that to dawn on me why that was the case. As I got more advanced, I started realizing the power of that statement. So the chromatic scale, I'll try to explain it here. The chromatic scale is 12 notes. Okay, that's all we got. Now, of course, you can bend notes as a guitarist or singer and find blues notes in between. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to say that 12 notes is all we have on a piano and all we have on a guitar in terms of frets, regardless of cool little bends that sometimes get in between. So 12 notes. But there's only 7 notes in a key. Say the key of C major, right? 1 through 7. That's true for any major scale. G major, 1 through 7. But the chromatic scale, now we have 12 notes. So let's take that to numbers. If we count chromatic notes, we don't count to 12 in terms of scale degrees. So that's the bonus. So let me go through this normally by just counting up 12 notes for now. Not as scale degrees, but just so we know. So here's the first note, C. I'm going to go all the way up to 12 and then start over at 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1. Or 13. Right? There's the first note all over again. Then you can just keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1. So that would be 12 notes up 2 octaves. But the bonus would be, okay, so that's the fifth essential, is really understanding and being able to play maybe a chromatic scale. But that's just the beginning. The bonus would be mapping out the scale degrees from a root chromatically. So how you would do that would be, instead of the 7 notes being whole steps and half steps, it's going to be half steps the whole way. You could just go up 1 string if it's easier for you. Doesn't matter. And knowing that if it's below where the major scale would have been, it's flat. Okay, so instead of 1, 2, we're going to go 1, flat 2. Here's 2. Instead of 3, we're going to go flat 3. So 1, flat 2, 2, flat 3, 3. 3 to 4, half step. No need to flat anything. Instead of 4 to 5, it'd be 4, flat 5. 5, flat 6, 6, flat 7, 7, 1. That's the chromatic scale, mapping it out with scale degrees. 1, flat 2, 2, flat 3, 3, 4, flat 5, 5, flat 6, 6, flat 7, 7, 1. Now, that would be a bonus because you really don't need to do that now, okay? What you need to do is really get comfortable with the 7 notes of a key and then start making little alterations here and there for your minor scales, for your Mixolydian scales, for your blues, pentatonic scales, etc. All right, but hopefully this has been helpful. I wanted to give sort of a getting started with music theory because we're going to start jumping back onto the Music Theory Mondays, and I want to be on the same page a little bit with our channel. So hopefully this has been helpful. Definitely subscribe and hit the bell icon and the thumbs up. Check out the study guide on the Patreon. Looking forward to seeing you next time.